Hello, Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today, we have with us a very special guest. She's the director of Chopra Yoga at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Her name is Sarah Platt Finger. She's an author and an expert in yoga and a wonderful teacher. This was an amazing interview to converse with her about how yoga can help you on the emotional and mental level, as well as the physical level. She brings some great science to the table. It's really interesting how a simple practice of breathing and moving that you can squeeze into your busy day can affect in a positive way your hormones, your mental clarity, your energy, your sleep, and even your heart health. So today we're going to talk about that. And before we do, I want to make sure you know that if you'd like to study this program, it's an online course. It's a 200-hour Chopra Yoga certification. And it's taught by Sarah Finger, as well as there's a few other teachers, including Dr. Deepak Chopra and Dr. Sheila Patel, board-certified physician and expert in Ayurveda. When you take this course, you will learn Ayurveda, meditation, breathing, physiology, and of course, stretching, the wonderful practice of yoga. But there's science behind it, which is really cool, that certain positions that we get in and hold isometrically and breathe while we're doing it not only strengthen the heart, but it lowers and balances blood pressure. And it strengthens our muscles, tones our muscles. And it's such a nice break from the, running on a treadmill or a bicycle or, just the hamster wheel, going to the gym and doing the hamster wheel. It's such a nice break. And what I love about it is you can do it anywhere. You can integrate it into any aspect of your day to enhance your body's healing function. It actually turns on. It's like a special golden button you can hit inside you that turns on super healing mode. So I love that through taking this online program, you can learn the tools to access your own healing mode. And a lot of practitioners, because I know a lot of practitioners listen to my podcast, you can integrate this with your clients, with your patients, and we talk about that as well. If you're interested in looking into it, you can even schedule a free appointment to talk about whether this is right for you and to learn more about it. You go to learntruehealth.com/coach. That's learntruehealth.com/coach. Of course, the links will be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com and wherever you listen to this podcast. When you go to that link, learntruehealth.com/coach, it's going to take you to IIN's courses. Not only will you see, if you scroll down, it's in the third row, it's called the Chopra Yoga 200-hour certification, which is what we're going to talk about today. But you also see the course that I took, which is the Health Coach Training Program, and I absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. It's such a phenomenal experience if you're looking for your own personal growth, for your own healing and health and ongoing healthy relationship with your overall life, health and joy in every aspect of your life. About half the people that take it simply for their own personal growth and health. And the other half take it because they want to integrate it into their business or that it practice in some way, or they too want to start being a health coach and taking on clients. And they teach you how to do that. They hold your hand, teach you how to do the business as well. So if you are interested in becoming a health coach and actually doing it as a business, this is a wonderful tool for you, wonderful resource for you. So go to learntruehealth.com/coach and check that out. But they also have other certifications. This is what I love, because the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which was the very first, it's the oldest, they actually coined the term health coach. And it's the oldest school online. But before it was online, it was in person. So they've been teaching for many years. And they merged recently with Dr. Chopra and all of his trainings. And so together they offer so many wonderful courses. You could take courses on Ayurveda, meditation, mindful eating course, hormone health, gut health. And a lot of these courses actually weren't available to the public until you became a health coach. But now they have altered them so that if you're just interested in gut health or you're just interested in detox, there's a whole course on detox. And it's very affordable. And for the larger courses, they have payment plans. They want it to be accessible to everyone. The most important thing that I want you to know is that they offer a really big discount to all my listeners all the time. No matter what, it's the biggest discount they'll ever offer. So you don't have to wait for a sale. If you're interested to take the courses, use my discount coupon code, which is LTH, as in Learn True Health. Or if you decide, instead of signing up online, which you can do, you can call them to sign up and speak to one of the health coaches there. All the staff that answer the phone have taken at least the flagship training program, the health coach training program, but many of them have dived into the other courses so that they can share their experience with you. And their sales staff are not in any way, they don't pressure you. They're just here to help, and they can talk to you about your goals and answer questions you may have. But if you mention my name, Ashley James, the Learn True Health podcast, or the coupon code LTH, you will get that great discount. You can go back and listen to my interview with the founder of IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, Joshua Rosenthal. I've interviewed him. I've also interviewed the new CEO, although not new anymore. She's been around for a few years, but she's the CEO, the current CEO. I've had her on the show, and I've had over a dozen of the faculty, the wonderful teachers and professors and doctors have come on the show and taught. And it's just been such a blessing to work with them because what they're doing is helping people to access true health through all the tools and everything that you can learn to find a balanced life, to nourish your whole being. And so I encourage you to go to learntruehealth.com/coach and check it out. You can just keep scrolling and looking at all the different really cool courses. You're gonna probably go, I want to take all these courses. But if you're interested in what we talk about today, the Chopra Yoga 200-hour certification, definitely sign up. It starts a few times a year. The cohort does it. You do it together as a group. And no matter what time of year it is, whether you're listening to this now or in December or in April or wherever it is, when you sign up, it unlocks the beginning of the course. So you get to actually start the course no matter when you sign up, and then you get to do all basically the pre-work, and then the whole cohort takes off together 3 times a year. So you will, no matter when you sign up, you'll be able to access the training and begin immediately, which is wonderful. And if you're interested in becoming a health coach like me, definitely click on the health coach training program, which is the very first option on the page. You'll see it, and you'll gain access to learning more about it. And it will take you to a free webinar that will teach you more about it. But there's lots of resources on that page. See a sample class as well. If you scroll down the page, once you click on the health coach training program option, you can scroll down, it'll say sample class, and you can sign up for a free sample class. It's very inspiring, and it'll give you a good idea as to what it feels like to take this course and what it looks like and how it works. And what I love about their trainings is that they hit every learning style. School was really difficult for me. I'm an excellent learner. If you've listened to my show, you know that I retain a lot of information. I love learning. I'm an auditory learner. So for me, like if I hear something, I'm really going to remember it well. And some people remember things better by reading, and some people remember things better by watching videos, whereas others remember by doing. So there's different learning styles. And, sometimes teachers, or when we're in school, they're not as great at hitting all of the learning styles. So some students fall through the cracks or feel very disenfranchised. In IIN, I never had a problem as a student. I really struggled in school. because the way the teachers taught wouldn't necessarily hit my learning style, or it was just, I don't know if you struggled in school like me, but then as an adult, you're like, why is it's so easy for me to learn when I want to learn something, when I'm on my own, when I'm diving in and I'm doing my own research. But when I was sitting in a classroom with 30 other kids, it was like I could beat my head against a wall. It was so frustrating. So I know everyone has a different experience with school, but what I thought was really refreshing is I did not have any problems with learning when I went through the year-long health coach training program through IIN. And they also have a 6-month program, accelerated program as well. And it really fits into your busy life. It's about 20 minutes a day. If you're going to dedicate 20 minutes a day for a year, then you will absolutely love their health coach training program. Similar to the 200-hour yoga training program, the Chopra Yoga program, you can dedicate a chunk of time each day or a larger chunk a few times a week, and you're able to be flexible to fit it into your life. And we talk a little bit about that in the interview. But if you're interested, go to learntruehealth.com/coach. Scroll down and see the tile that says the Chopra 200-hour yoga training and click on it. And from there, it's a beautifully laid out website with wonderful information. It gives you all you need to know. And like I said, if you want to check out the health coach training program, click on that, because you can gain access to videos and a whole sample course, as well as a webinar. So there's lots of resources on that page. So enjoy today's interview. And if you have any questions about my experience as a student at IIN or at what I've been able to do since graduating many years ago, and how wonderful it's been working with them and interviewing them and them as a company, I've just loved them. There's just very, very high integrity, and that's why I continue to share their message with you, because I feel that you as the listener would benefit from taking their courses. And of course, I'm not mama bear. I want to be very protective of my listeners. So if there's something I don't believe in or don't trust, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to bring it to the table. I really do trust them, and I trust that they'll take care of you. Have yourself a fantastic day. Enjoy today's interview. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you so much for sharing this podcast with those you care about. Together, we're helping to turn this little ripple into a tidal wave and help as many people as possible to learn true health. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 529. I am so excited for today's guest. We're going to have such a fun conversation today. Our guest is Sarah Platt Finger, who is the director of Chopra Yoga at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and co-founder of Ishta Yoga LLC. And Deepak Chopra called Sarah, our wonderful guest, an extraordinary teacher of yoga that has called enormously to my well-being. How amazing. You also co-authored a book with Dr. Chopra, Living in the Light, Yoga for Self-Realization. I've had some wonderful experiences with yoga, and I just want to say right off the bat, I am also Christian, and I know some Christians want to stay away from yoga. And so this episode, although might not be for everyone, that's okay. Yoga really served me, and it actually really, really helped me. And I'd love to talk about that. And I think that there's a place for the practice for everyone. I don't think we have to say that it's a religion. So that's just right off the bat, I think we can look at the health benefits of yoga. One of my closest, dearest friends, I just love her. She runs a addiction recovery center in Woodinville, Washington, Badra Recovery, and she gets incredible results helping alcoholics and other people who have addiction to other substances recover. She gets extremely high results, and she incorporates and she attributes it to yoga. She says yoga, is a big part of her system to help people fully recover from addiction and get their life back. And so I just believe that there's so much here for mental health, for emotional health, for physical health. And I think that's really important for us to just keep a really open mind and look to what we can gain from this conversation, what we can gain from yoga to support our overall well-being. Having said that, Sarah, I'm so excited to have you on the show today because we're going to learn more about what it is to take your yoga teacher training program, and it's online, so it's accessible to everyone around the world. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashley. It's really a pleasure to be with you. And I'm excited about this conversation of kind of redefining what the practice of yoga is.
Exactly. And I think that like a lot of people just don't have, if they haven't experienced it, they don't know. There's so much evidence to show. We're actually going to get into the science. This is what I'm really excited about. We could talk the talk, but let's show where rubber meets the road. You're bringing today some studies to show the science behind the health benefits that we can gain from yoga. Before we do that, like there's some people don't even know what it is. So let's start with what is yoga? Some people imagine, we all know like Lululemon, spandex, we know that like, okay, we stretch and maybe some people sweating and stretching, but beyond sweating and stretching and maybe some breathing, what is yoga?
Such a great question. Yoga is a Sanskrit word that means union. And it's essentially, I don't think of it as, it is not a religion. It's not even really an exercise or a fitness trend. But I really think of yoga as a science. It's a science and a lived experience of balancing the different aspects of our being, our nervous system, right? So the more solar and lunar energies, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, via physical poses, right, which are called asana, the Sanskrit word for it. Yoga did originate in India about 2,500 or more years ago, which is why a lot of the verbiage we use to explain the concepts of yoga comes from this ancient language, which is Sanskrit. And it's this practice of unifying the different disparate aspects of ourselves to experience who we really are beyond or behind our physical body, our thoughts, our identity, our sense of our emotions. Like, what is that seer, the witness, that is able to experience the rising and subsiding of life experience and not be changed and not be afflicted, if that makes sense. So it is a practice of essentially returning back to the aspect of yourself that's unchanging.
When I was a teenager, I don't know if you remember being a teenager, but it was pretty intense. The emotions were, I just remember a lot of really intense emotions. And my mom took me to yoga classes with her. And I remember going in feeling angsty, stressed out, just very, very anxious, very angry, like just these bursts of anger, which I'm not an angry person, but like hormones, man, puberty.
Oh, yeah.
And going in, just feeling all riled up, ready to kind of snap and start a fight, and coming out back to myself, right? Feeling back to my center. It really helped me through the mental, emotional turmoil of puberty. I studied Hatha yoga, which was a really big shift from the regular yoga classes I was used to, because my yoga teacher, who's from India, told us to keep our eyes open. She was very militaristic. So it was really, you became very aware of your posture, how you hold yourself, even outside the yoga class. It was this awareness of your strength and how where you hold your shoulders, where you hold your neck, how you hold your shoulders back, how you breathe, how you can let sort of that strength and energy flow through you and have that strong calmness inside. When you say yoga means unity, I think of the unity where you come into alignment with yourself, where you're not scattered, where you're feeling like your emotional, mental, and physical body are doing really well together, in alignment together. That's what it feels like for
Mm-hmm.
me. And then I went to Kripalu and studied there. I spent over a month there and did Kripalu yoga, which is different. Every time I would choose a different type of yoga, it was very, very, very different.
Yep.
And yet the outcome was very similar. I found I found more strength inside me, physical strength, but then I found more just this, like, being on a balance beam and being unshakable emotionally, right? So as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to feeling like, like someone could look at me the wrong way and I could cry. Like that would be me
Mm-hmm.
going into yoga class, and then
Yeah.
afterwards it's like I am unshakable, and that has a lot to do with that calming the nervous system and tonifying the nervous system, so we're not
Yeah.
caught up in that fight or flight all the time, which we really, really need to do on a daily basis to optimize our immune function and optimize our body's ability to heal itself, is to ask ourselves to come back into that healing mode, the parasympathetic rest and digest mode, which we are almost never in these days. We're always
Yeah.
caught up in that stress response. And stress isn't an emotion. And that's a really important thing to know, because so many people go, I'm not stressed. And I'm like, I bet you are. And when was the last time you
Mm-hmm.
were in rest and digest mode? Right?
Right.
Because we really don't feel it. We feel the effects of it. Right. And so,
Right.
and then down the road, you live in stress mode. Down the road, your body breaks down, and we have all these diseases that are really attributed to years of stress. So that's why I love that if we all took this training together, this online training, and we learned how to turn on healing mode, how to turn on rest and digest mode on a daily basis, and did it, we'd be protecting our nervous system, protecting our immune system, protecting our mental, emotional health. There's so much we could get out of it. So that's why I see that there's value in this.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the human nervous system and its real power, right? There's a power in our nervous system, and that we are able to dial it up and dial it back down. And these ancient practices that we have to adjust our energy, whether it is, and sometimes we do need to dial it up. Sometimes, if you're feeling depressed and unmotivated, you might need practices to energize you and awaken you. Yoga can do that. It can also give you practices which the majority of our culture need, which is to downregulate the nervous system. So we start from a baseline of homeostasis. And you're right, most people are not familiar with that state. It's almost like a foreign concept to be in a space where your heart rate is in its baseline, your brain waves are more slowed down, your blood pressure is in a healthy space, and you're able to explore the world and see the world as it really is. Sometimes we like to use this analogy of a lake, right? And that your mind and your thoughts, the fluctuations in your mind, which in Sanskrit they're called vrittis, are kind of like ripples in a lake. And as we become more hypervigilant, as our nervous system gets heightened because of external stressors, daily pressures, etc., those ripples become more and more fluctuating. And like a lake, when you have a lot of activity, you're unable to perceive the images, the reflections that you see in the lake with clarity. And it's the same thing with the mind. When we have so much turbulence and fluctuation in our mind, we're unable to perceive things with clarity. So it's like you see a quarter in a lake and you think it's a big fish. And it's the same thing with our relationships, with our decision-making processes. We're not always in a clear, coherent space to be able to take actions and make choices that are for our highest good, because we're so busy fighting that sympathetic nervous response.
And the fight or flight is meant to keep us alive, but only for a very short period of time. We're only really meant to be in it when there's a bear, which we're being chased by the bear, we run away from the bear, we're good. Or there's a fire, we get away from the fire, we're good. And it's supposed to turn off.
Correct.
And then we're supposed to be, 95% of the time we're supposed to be in rest and digest mode, but it has actually been reversed. And now we are in that fight or flight almost all the time because you look at your phone, there's going to be a trigger. You look at the news, there's going to be a trigger. You look at your bills, there's going to be a trigger. You're driving. It's, we're driving these death machines around. Like it's wild. It's wild. We have no peace. I just came from the country. We went out, we drove out into the mountains, into the Okanagan Highlands of Washington, and there's no cell service. So this is just to paint the picture. You can't see anyone. Like it's crazy. You're on top of these beautiful, rolling, gorgeous, golden mountains sprinkled with forests, and you can't see your neighbor. No, you see more cows than your neighbor. Like it's gorgeous. There's no amenities. There's no restaurants. There's nothing. It's just you and the wind and your thoughts. And I would sit there and think, how our ancestors, this is how they lived. Like even like the Bible, right? You think about we had our herd of goats or our sheep, and we, had our fields and we had our thoughts and we had nature and we looked up at the stars and we breathed and we were at peace in the world most of the time. And then if there was a wolf or a bear, that's when we went into stress mode. And now it's the opposite. Now we are not in at peace with nature. We are not in tune with our body. We ignore our body, and then we wonder where did it all go wrong? We don't listen to the whispers. Things just start to break really poorly. But it actually started 20 years ago when we entered stress mode and didn't leave it. So this is why we've got to stop what we're doing, because what we're doing isn't working. When we look at the statistics of the disease rates, looking at 1 in 3 people will have cancer. 1 in 3 people will have diabetes, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity. 70% of adult Americans are on at least one prescription medication. Many, many, many people are on pain meds. We're sick, and we need to look back at the root cause. What's going on? Our body is almost never in healing mode. When we're in stress mode, our body shuts down healing. It actually just shuts it down so that we could do immediate survival things. And that's what I love about this practice, even just sitting there and breathing, right? So I believe it's called asana, breathing. Is that it? Did I say that wrong?
No, you said asana correctly. That's the asanas, the physical poses.
Okay, what's the breathing?
Is pranayama.
Pranayama, that's right. So breathing, which I teach breathing to my clients because it's
beautiful.
They'll come in hot and I'm like, okay, I've got one thing for you to do. And they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. We just took 8 slow breaths. We took 8 slow breaths. It takes 2 minutes. And they're like, they're like, I can't believe how much of a difference that would make. You don't need to carve out these 90-minute yoga sessions every day. How about just give me 2 minutes of breathing?
Exactly.
I'd love for you to guide us through a pranayama.
Well done.
I'd love for you. I mean, this has been a bit maybe 20 years since I studied yoga, but I'd love for you to guide us through one at some point in this interview, because I want everyone to experience that. If you haven't ever experienced it, I want you to experience it. And we don't need to use fancy, beautiful, by the way, beautiful, fancy foreign words. It is breathing with intention in order to bring your calm to your body, in order to turn that switch on in your body that tells your nervous system you're safe and it's okay to go back into healing mode.
Correct. Yeah. And the interesting thing about the breath is that, it's really hard to tell our minds to be quiet or tell your heart rate to slow down. or your digestion to start to function more optimally. These are all functions of our autonomic nervous system, and breathing is included, but the breath is one of the only maybe two functions of our nervous system that's happening, but that we can also control. So we have the power to shift the way that we breathe. And by shifting the way that we breathe, we automatically impact not only those other nervous system responses, but our mind, right? The quality of your mind. I could say, like, stop thinking or stop thinking thoughts. And by using thoughts to quiet thoughts, that's a very hard formula. But breath, right? It molds and it shapes our mind and the way that, or the activity of the mind. So in that way, it's really an immediate and very profound response and impact that we have to shift the present moment. And like you said, it really doesn't take a long time. You can do 3 to 5 breaths and in a moment re-regulate your nervous system and just change your whole outlook.
Can you imagine if every child was taught just simple breath work to regulate their nervous system when, like every child
Yep.
in, day one, kindergarten, we're going to do some breathing. And then every time there was a child who clearly was in anxiety, right? The whole class did 2 minutes of breathing, right? Like if everyone was just taught, like math is important, English reading is important, and learning how to regulate your nervous system and calm your nervous system so you get full control of your mindset, your brain back, that would put people back into learning state, right? And then you get what not everyone realizes is that when we go into fight or flight, when we go into that stress mode, you don't feel stress, so you don't know it, but we actually lose critical thinking.
Right.
We lose the higher function of our brain. Our brain goes more into that survival mode, and the optimal learning does not happen there. But think of our children and the environment they're in. If your child goes to like regular school, we homeschool, so it's a little different. You could, but I'm telling you, I probably need to like have a big reminder somewhere, like breathe, breathe. And just imagine if the children were taught this, and there's how much of the time are children in stress mode and not in learning mode, because it is a tumultuous experience to be in these very busy classrooms, very overwhelming, constantly feeling judged, constantly bullied. It's not a healthy place to be. It's not really a productive learning environment. And that's where we came from. That's where all of us survived that on or we have our scars and our wounds from our early childhood, education. And we never learned. We learned to cope. We turned to drugs. We turned to alcohol. We turned to addictions. We turned to other coping mechanisms. We turned to TV. Think about what you turned to when you got overwhelmed when you were a teenager. What kind of coping mechanism did you turn to help regulate your nervous system? So many of us turn to even sugar, right?
Yeah.
Substances outside of ourselves instead of learning how to regulate our own nervous system. Can you imagine if the entire planet just learned to like pause and breathe when they felt themselves come out of that rest and digest mode, when they started to feel like, oh, my heart rate's kind of rising. I'm kind of feeling antsy and anxious. I'm starting to get tunnel vision. That they learn to just pause and breathe. Just that alone, would shift the entire world. Like, and this is your ticket. This is your key to taking back control of your life. That's why my friend Jessica has such a high recovery rate with her clients when she does her coaching, when she does her mental health counseling for addiction, because she teaches the alcoholics and the those addicted to substances when they come to her. She teaches them how to regulate their nervous system through yoga, and they walk out of there like feeling strong inside and feeling like they have control, because now they have the button to push to down regulate and control their nervous system. So I want you to do some breathing with us for sure. Before we get to that, though, do you have any studies specifically around your nervous system, around the effects of practicing yoga on our mental emotional health or our nervous system control?
Well, there's definitely studies that have been shown of the heart benefits of yoga, that it
Mm,
lower blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar. That And there's another study that found that practicing yoga improved lipid profiles.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
as well as in patients with coronary artery disease. It lowers excessive blood sugar levels in people who have diabetes. So there's all kinds of studies. One study, there were several small studies that found that yoga has a positive effect on cardiovascular risk factors. So it does help to lower blood pressure in people who have hypertension. And they think that that's because it restores baroreceptor sensitivity. And that's what affects what allows your blood pressure to move from high to low blood pressure. Some of that can be based on some of the asanas that we do. For example, when we go upside down for an extended period of time, it can open that baroreceptor and shift your blood pressure from an increased to a more decreased state. So that's an interesting thing. There's also been research that shows that small groups of individuals who are more sedentary, who hadn't practiced yoga before, that after 8 weeks of practicing yoga, at least twice a week, for a total of 180 minutes, participants had greater muscle strength and endurance and flexibility and cardiorespiratory fitness. So I think that aspect that you said about feeling strong is also a big
Mm-hmm.
part of the practice. We've spoken a lot about the re-regulating of the nervous system and moving from that state of hypervigilance into more of rest and digest. But I think it's a really important key to recognize that the power of the physical poses and of being able to, and there's all kinds of benefits in holding poses for an extended period of time, that they do also increase your muscle tone, your cardiovascular endurance, flexibility, the fascia intelligence in your body. And that holding poses for an extended period of time, on top of the physical benefits of it, it builds resilience, right, in our minds, where we are able to kind of hold and experience perhaps feelings that might feel uncomfortable or irregular or more challenging. If you think about, holding a pose where you're in a semi-squat position, right, for an extended period of time, that requires strength and endurance. And when we can hold that and breathe at the same time, we are increasing our muscle strength and power, and at the same time using the breath to quiet and calm the nervous system down. And these two components of strength and ease and surrender really create this resilient response in our bodies, that we can move through challenging situations. Sometimes yoga poses are like challenging situations that we experience in life. That's how I like to think of them. And any given situation can make you feel excited, elated, free, or you can have other situations that make you feel fearful or anxious or angry. And any shape that you create with your body can also evoke those different responses, right? And it's not about how do you run away from those responses, but how do you hold that in your field of awareness and learn how to move through it and get on the other side of it. And that is the experience that we take with us from yoga. The yoga experience is, yes, the practice, the class is on the mat, so to speak, right? The yoga mat that It's where you do your downward facing dog or any other type of part of the practice. But when you step off of the mat and into your life, you're carrying with you all of the residue of that practice. And it's like information that you can recruit in any given moment, like that stressful talk you have to have with your child or your friend or a coworker. And you held this pose for an extended period of time and you got through that. Then you can say to yourself, you know what? I can get through this too. So it's really about applying some of the benefits that we receive on the mat, off the mat, right, into our everyday life.
I love that you said that because I remember just recently I took my husband to actually his first yoga class, which I was surprised that he had never done one. And the next day I was like, wow, why are my shoulders so sore? Like, what is going on? And he looks at me, he goes, we were like holding ourselves like in a static pose, like holding ourselves upside down. Now, like my feet, it wasn't like I was holding my whole body weight. It's like you do a downward dog, and then you're basically what that looks like for those who don't know what that is. You bend at the hips and put your hands on the mat like you're making your body into a triangle. And then, we were doing basically what looked like yoga burpees and doing these movements of pushing up and getting up and getting down and getting up and getting down. But the next day I was like, I feel like I just did some major weightlifting. And I love weightlifting. Like that's where like I love, seeing how much I can lift. I love that feeling of strength. And I was surprised because I hadn't done any weightlifting in a few days. And I'm like, I feel like I just, did some major kettlebells. Like what's going on? And it was so cool how much I got out of that class because it's just you and your body weight. And I notice how much of my internal dialogue happens, like I think like, can I do this pose? Like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And I'm going to try it. Oh, wow, I'm doing it. Okay. Hey, I have more balance than I thought I did. And so you notice how much you criticize yourself, how much you doubt yourself. And then you notice like if you take on the challenge of something you think you might not be able to do, and then you like go, hey, I'm not doing this perfectly, but look, I did some of it, standing up on one foot, right? And just increasing your balance. That, I mean, many of us don't do that on a regular basis and should. But when it comes to growing older, we need to develop and build and protect our balance now so that when we are older, we can prevent falls. And it's a real thing. That's a real risk, dying from falls it's a painful and slow death, like getting falling and breaking your hip, for example, God forbid it happens to any of us. But if you could prevent that by honing and dialing in your body's ability to have strength in balance. I also love that yoga is really for any age, that it can be adapted to any age and to build us up no matter where we are.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of seniors do chair yoga. It's like wherever you are, it can meet you wherever you are, which is really cool.
And it can build wherever you are. It's so important that you said that because where it meets you where you're at. And a good teacher will provide those different options for their class, right? Where you have a version where you can step it up, or you have a version where you can modify or dial it down a little bit. And this practice of, what we call self-study, like understanding yourself, really listening to the feedback you're getting from your body of how much is too much or not enough. And my rule of thumb is if you feel something happening and you can still breathe, that's your edge. And that's where we want to go and where we want to be in the practice, where we feel something happening, but we can still breathe steadily in and out through the nostrils. That's where transformation happens. That's where growth happens. That's where, great opportunity is, where, like you say, we realize how how capable we are. Like the body often has so much more um, strength and power and capability than our mind might give it credit for. I mean, just watching the
Mm.
Olympics, right? It's just incredible to see the potential of the human body. And I'm certainly not a proponent of acrobat yoga. That's certainly not what I'm talking about, but it's more about, again, listening to what is your edge? What is your place where you start to feel like you did, the strength in your upper body or in your legs, and just this sensation arising. And in that sensation, there's so much information. We spend so much of our day up in our minds, like
Mm-hmm.
planning tomorrow or reflecting on yesterday or last week and what am I going to do about this or that. But to really be present in our bodies, that is a skill set and really a power that we can take with us as we age, right? As we notice the shifts or deteriorations, like understanding how to feed ourselves differently. That was another study about mindful eating and the correlations between yoga practitioners and their ability to just make healthier choices in life because you're becoming more aware. You're just in that connection with the physical responses that you're having in any given moment where you can listen, and then you respond accordingly. And I like to think of it, I often say in my classes that it's like yoga is a dialogue. It's a conversation you're having with your body. We're often like the dictator of our body, like you've got to do this and you've got to do that and listen to me, right? But when we can have a conversation, we can let the wisdom of the body respond, and it creates a whole new experience for ourselves.
Mm. I love that. So the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which we had mentioned at the beginning, I took their year-long health coach training program, and I've also interviewed the creator of IIN,
Mm.
Joshua Rosenthal. I've interviewed the wonderful new CEO. I've had
Mhm.
several, at least a dozen of the faculty on the show. I loved my experience with the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I was surprised to find out that about half the people that take the courses there are just doing it for personal growth,
Mm.
and the other half are doing it for the career they want to either enrich or they want to get into. But I was surprised at how many people do the courses just for their own personal growth. But it makes sense
Yeah.
because I got so much personal growth out of my experience there. And now IAN has partnered with Chopra. And so through IAN, your yoga training is offered. Is similar to the IAN health coach training program? Is your 200-hour yoga teacher training also for personal growth? Do you find that people do it because they want their personal growth, and there's a percentage that want to actually go out and teach yoga? Or can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, and I see this a lot, that people embark on a yoga teacher training not because they want to teach, but because they want to learn and, yes, grow themselves in their own practice and just understand the practice in a more nuanced, intimate way. And folks who sign up for the training will certainly get that experience. But then this other thing happens where maybe, 50% are doing it for their own personal reasons. And then by the end of the training, like 30% of those 50% decide, actually, I do want to teach. I'm getting the bite. There's just something sparks inside of you where you start to practice teach, or maybe you practice teach friends and loved ones, and you see how the act of teaching is such an elevating experience. And I'm sure you experienced this when you did your course and you've worked with your own clients, that you see that in sharing the gifts of the practice and seeing other people respond in such positive ways, it actually fuels and feeds you. There's a real nourishment we can get from watching other people grow and transform from the practices you have shared with them. It restores a sense of meaning, I think, in life that for many of the world is lost in the moment, right? To have meaning and feeling like I'm helping to change someone's life in maybe subtle ways. It could be something simple like I had lower back pain and now it's gone, or I wasn't
Mhm.
standing properly and now I have better posture. Like for me, it's sometimes those real micro shifts that mean make all of the difference. And so once you experience the joy of, and I do call it sharing. I think sometimes the idea of teaching feels like overwhelming for some people to think that they are going to teach yoga. That's why I say we share the practice, we share the teachings with other people because it's a shared lived experience. I can only teach what is my own lived experience, and I share that with people, and they take from that what is useful to them and pass that on. And so it's not about a hierarchy, like I know more, you know less. It's like this has been my experience and I share it with you, and you can take from that what suits and serves you. So yeah, it really is an empowering experience.
I like that you pointed that out because I've met so many wonderful, talented, knowledgeable people who don't believe in themselves and who
Mm,
say, "Oh, I'm not an expert. I
right.
couldn't teach this." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You have so much to share. You have so much to give, and people would be so blessed to
Mm,
learn something from you." But they're like, "Who am I? Who am I to I'm not the expert here,
yeah.
right?" And we've been, I think, brainwashed or traumatized from the education system to believe that like you have to have a PhD before anyone could even
Hmm.
possibly listen to you, right? And it's
Hmm.
funny because you get there, like even people earn PhDs and they're still like, "Oh, I thought something magical would happen where I I feel like an expert. I still don't feel like an expert." I'm like, that's because
Yeah.
it's all up to, it's in your head, right? Like if you
Yeah.
don't believe in yourself, a piece of paper is not going to make you believe in yourself.
And it's
But
about connection.
it is.
Yeah, because there are some people who might have those high credentials, the PhDs, and are they then able to connect with other people in a way that
Mm.
helps them to understand? So it can go both ways, right? And that's why, yeah, I think this power of connection is really important, especially if you are in the field of wellness and you're wanting to share and help other people, that we do it in a way that's authentic. It is grounded in science and, facts and a lived experience, but that we also do it in a way that is like we're seeing each other, we're watching, we're witnessing, and in this space of in it together. That's the healing.
Mm. Do you have any more of that science to share with us?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can talk a little bit about the science of, since we were talking about breath, I think we can talk a little bit about nasal breathing and the importance of nasal breathing. And there was a great book by James Nestor called Breath, if anyone has read that book. But it really substantiates a lot of what the ancient yogis knew, which was that breathing through the nostrils not only helps to extend and lengthen the breath, which calms and quiets the nervous system, there is also an air filtration that happens when we breathe in through the nostrils, through these little hairs called cilia, which are in the nostrils, that when the air passes through the cilia in the nostrils, it has a purifying effect. So it sort of filters through some of the toxins that's in the air that we breathe, and then it also increases the nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is what helps the oxygen to circulate through blood into the different organs of our body. And nasal breathing increases the amount of nitric oxide that we're able to produce. So it helps with our blood circulation and the oxygenation of our cells and our organs. So that's really interesting as well. And of course, we also know that, from each nostril, this is a more energetic, but then scientists found that nostrils correspond to an opposite hemisphere in the brain. So the right nostril corresponds to the left brain hemisphere, and the left nostril corresponds to the right brain hemisphere. And that when we balance both the flow of air through both nostrils, it creates a balance in both brain hemispheres, which increases creativity and our ability to think outside the box and be a little more innovative. And it helps to calm the nervous system and quiet anxiety as well. So really interesting facts around the benefits of nasal breathing.
I think everyone is feeling a little calmer because they all started breathing more deeply through their nose, closing their mouth if they caught themselves breathing through their mouth. And I think everyone's going, wow, I'm now breathing a little deeper through my nose since we started this conversation.
And it will help with mental alertness too. Sorry to interject, but just that, your ability to concentrate and listen is also an effect of nasal breathing. So hopefully that helped as well.
Well, everyone wants that, and yet they run to Starbucks, or sugar or something for mental alertness when we could all just breathe through our noses, people.
Yeah.
Like look what we have this built-in system to regulate our nervous system, but I just feel like we all stepped away the last 100 or so years. We all stepped away from how we're supposed to live, and we live such an artificial life that we've really, we're now coming back to, a lot of people are now interested in coming back to learning about their body, learning about their health, because we have to, because modern, quote unquote modern medicine, right? Like drug-based medicine doesn't have the answers for helping the body heal from chronic illness. They just have more drugs, right?
Right.
But they just suck at healing chronic illness because we don't have a drug deficiency, right? We need to come back to the root of healing, which is coming back inside ourselves, getting ourselves into that rest and digest mode, regulating our nervous system. And I love that through the process of the practice of yoga, and it can just be a few times a week. It doesn't have to be, like busy people can fit it in. Listen, my friend has 5 kids and I think three or more grandkids. She runs her own business. She does yoga on a regular basis. She is a busy woman. I know many very, very, very busy people who are able to fit it into their life because it gives them so much more than it takes.
Yeah.
It might take you half an hour, a few times a week, or 45 minutes a few times a week, but it gives so much more, and it lasts. Like you can see the lasting effects of it. And I love that then it helps people to become conscientious of what they're eating, and they start to get more connected with their body. So they go, wow, that meal really served me. I feel really good. I'm gonna eat more like that. Or wow, that I feel really bloated and slow and sluggish from eating that meal. I think I'm gonna do less of that. And we come back into our body. We have more I keep saying awareness, but that's like we're so unaware. Yeah. We're so numbed out.
Yeah.
And when we turn to caffeine, sugar, alcohol, these are numbing agents, TV, we're just numbing ourselves, social media, we're numbing ourselves. And this practice allows us to come back in, and then we get so much more. So the course you teach, though, can complete beginners who've never done yoga take your course, or do you have recommendations for them to go do some classes before they come? Like, tell us who can take your training, and I'd love to hear the transformations that people go through when they take the training.
Yeah. I'd love to share about it. Well, the course starts with our Yoga Foundations program, which is just that. It's basically the foundations of yoga. What is yoga? What is asana? What does the word Om mean? Like, what are these scientific reasons behind some of the practices, just sort of demystifying the practice to help give a better understanding. Again, I worked a lot with Deepak Chopra. He's a scientist and a doctor in his essence. So a lot of what we bring to the table are some of these science-based experiences, and also how the practice is affecting us from that physiological perspective. So the Yoga Foundations is open to anybody, absolute beginners who have never done it before. Anyone listening to this podcast, like, yoga, what's that? Oh, you can do that course, which is about a 15-hour course, and it includes some of the yoga poses and some of the philosophy and the breath pranayama practices, just to give people a basic foundational understanding of it. And then from there, they do the 16-week, it's a 16 module course. The foundations program is evergreen, so you just take it in your own time. There's no live component to it. But in the actual certification program, which is accredited by an organization called Yoga Alliance, they kind of oversee the standardization process of yoga schools throughout the United States and internationally as well. That is over the course of 16 weeks, and people come in. There's an e-learning component that is self-paced, and then there are a few webinars that happen, 2 live sessions throughout the week, one of which can be done as a recording, one of it which is live and in person. Those in-person live sessions are really where you get the opportunity to practice teach with your peers. They're done in smaller groups. You can ask questions. You understand more the anatomical aspects of like movement and biomechanics and what's happening in our joints when we do some of these shapes. Why are some things easier for some people and more challenging? Our bones are not identical. They're shaped differently. The way they move is different. So it's why it's so important that we say and share that yoga is not a one-size-fits-all practice. It's not the same for everybody. And so understanding where your limitations are and where you might need to adjust a pose to suit your individual needs is really fundamental in your ability to come back to the practice and make it sustainable. So many times people come to me and say, yeah, I tried yoga, but I'm not flexible enough, or I'm not thin enough, or I'm not strong enough. So I couldn't, it was always like not enough. And it made me feel so truly sad because there is no measurement. It's just, if you can breathe and you have a human nervous system, you can experience yoga. It's really that simple. And it's really, and what we teach our teachers is to be able to share this practice with a larger population, and a multitude and a different range of anatomies and constitutions and backgrounds, so that it's not just for a select group of people, but for a greater mass. So yeah, there's a real range of studies that we bring into each week, both philosophical and anatomical and experiential. And week over week, we focus on a different focus or topic, a different category of poses, different breathing techniques. And we also bring in some hand gestures, which are called mudras. Hands, interestingly, occupy about 30% of our motor sensory cortex in the brain. So what we do with our hands lights up different parts of our brain and can affect and impact the way that we feel. And, ancient yogis, they knew this. And so you can create different gestures with your hands to affect your concentration, to calm yourself down, to help you feel inspired. So that's part of the practice as well.
I love it. Um, at the end of yoga classes, a lot of times there's a moment where we can go within, have a few minutes of meditation.
Mm.
And meditation is it's so personal, and there's so many different ways to teach it. One of my best friends is actually a guru in Kriya Yoga,
Mhm.
which is not stretchy yoga.
Mhm.
It's all up in the head.
Yep.
But he's written a few books on meditation, and it just fascinates me because he gets into the you can hook yourself up to machines, and you can measure it, and you can go deep into the science of it. But we can see that by lying there and just breathing and just being at peace with yourself for a few moments, that your brain enters these wonderful healthy brain waves
Yeah.
that show us that we're actually unlocking creativity, that we're unlocking our potential. And we certainly are in that rest and digest. It's a superpower we have to go into that rest and digest mode where the body is in that super healing state. It's so wonderful for our emotional health and our mental health.
Mm.
And I know I keep saying that, but it's like, this is what we get. So for
Yeah.
those who don't have very much or any experience with meditation, it sounds boring. It sounds scary. It's like people have different perceptions. I know in your class you guys do teach some meditation. What do we get from taking your course? Do people end up feeling confident around their ability to have a healthy meditation practice? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, especially for people who don't really have an experience of meditation.
Yeah. No, I'd love to talk it. And thank you so much for asking about it, because it is sort of one of the limbs of yoga. Yoga has 8 limbs that we talk about, and one of them is meditation. And it tends to be bypassed in modern Western society as like something separate to yoga. We always think of yoga as the poses and meditation as something else, but meditation is an integral aspect of yoga, right? To be able to merge, right? To come into union, you have to be able to sit and be still and be with yourself for an extended period of time. And that's what meditation is. And we do have a whole module on meditation, which is based off of Deepak Chopra's lineage of meditation and what he learned from Maharishi Mahesh years ago. And it's a mantra-based meditation. And mantra can be anything. It is like a prayer, right? If you say something over and over again for an extended period of time, whether it's Om Shanti, or breathe in, breathe out, or peace, or thy will be done, whatever words resonate with you, there is a physiological response, right? The relaxation response that happens when we attempt something over and over again. We do something repetitively, and we attempt to let go of outside distraction. Meditation, by the way, can also happen when you swim, when you walk, when you knit, when you run, right? You're doing something repetitive and keeping your mind focused on it for an extended period of time. But the yoga practice goes a little bit deeper. Like, there's that state of meditation where you're kind of in the flow. And that's where, you're no longer distracted by limiting beliefs or thoughts that can make us feel inept or unworthy, right? These thoughts that are, whether they're in our conscious or our unconscious, they kind of govern us. And sitting in meditation for an extended period of time, you replace those thoughts with something else, whether it's a repetitive sound, a mantra, a prayer, something that resonates with you, then that triggers our nervous system to calm and quiet down, the healing response to happen on a physiological level, right? Where brain waves slow down, nervous system, blood pressure decreases, digestion increases, all of those great effects. But on a mental, emotional, and dare I say, spiritual aspect, what it does is helps us to understand ourselves as something other than our physical shape, form, body, other than our thoughts, other than our emotions, other than our fears, and return back to this all-pervasive, the word that you've come back to a lot, awareness. It's like coming back to yourself as the sky. And when we understand ourselves as the sky, we then can see when stress happens and other perturbances in life that, yes, it comes, but it also goes, and it doesn't have to define us. We don't have to identify ourselves as the scared one, the stressed one. It's like I'm experiencing stress, and the stress will also subside, and I can come back to that sky-like nature. But the importance of doing it on a daily basis cannot be overstated because it's Pavlovian, And I love that we're talking so much science because we can bring, like when you do it over and over and over again, the mind then knows you can take 1 or 2 breaths and then come back into that state of peace and relaxation. And then take that with you throughout your day. But just as we practice or have our habits of making the bed and brushing our teeth and other daily hygienic practices, yoga and meditation are like the mental, spiritual hygiene that we have to do on a daily basis, right? To take care of ourselves.
You said something about when we meditate, we have this moment where it's a break. We have this moment where it's almost like we're plucking ourselves out of our human experience, that like where we believe, we're so stuck in our physical body. We believe our reality is the reality. And you can look at politics and how people react, and you realize like everyone really is walking around like with the hubris that their version of reality is the reality and everyone else's reality is wrong.
Right.
And it's kind of ludicrous. Like we're all kind of crazy and stupid. You know what I mean? Because there's no right. Your reality isn't the right reality. Everyone has a different perception through the lens of their experiences and their beliefs and their limiting beliefs, their negative beliefs, right? Like I'm so frustrated by the friends I have that believe in the bad things about themselves. Like they're not good enough. They're not loved. Like they're not worthy of love. They're they're too this or too that, or too short, too tall, too fat, too thin, like whatever. Like, and when we're wrapped up in that, our self-worth is so poor because we believe we believe the lies we've told ourselves. Or the lies other people have told us when we were young, right? And we're walking around with this belief system like a prison. And if just for a moment we can pluck our consciousness out of that and have this other experience over here where you are not what your dad believed about you, what your mom believed about you, what your first grade teacher believed about you, right? You are not the negative beliefs that you have self-imposed limitations on you your entire life, and you put chains on you willingly. And the suffering that you choose, we don't want it. We complain about the chains we put on ourselves because we don't even realize that the belief systems we can choose a different way because we believe our reality is the only reality. We believe in this prison we put ourselves in.
Yeah.
And when we learn, and this is through, personal growth, right? Dive into personal growth and you will learn that you are amazing and you can let go of these chains of limitations and you can grow. If you're not good at something, you can get good at it, right? And pluck yourself out of that experience of who you've been right? Like people are living in a body that's hurting. And that's like, they believe they'll always have that. And it's not true. You don't have to always have that, right? Or it doesn't have to be your prison. But when you have that moment where you're somewhere else, like if I plucked a goldfish out of I don't want to torture fish here, but just imagine for a moment this goldfish is not tortured by taking it out of the water. But if I plucked the goldfish out of the water and it saw the air and it saw the water for the first time and it went, holy crow, I live in water. Like I didn't even know that. I thought that's just everyone lived in this. And this is what was always around us. I didn't question it until we have a different experience and we look down and we go, oh, that's the reality I've been choosing to live in. So I love that experience of meditation, that it doesn't have to be this long, like I have to sit there for 45 minutes and it's so boring. But when you have that moment, like breathing 8 times, slow and deep, right? If you have that moment where you are you're not living in that limited reality, that prison, that suffering, right? And then you can go, wait, why am I choosing that to be about me? Why am I choosing that? Like, I don't need that. I can let that go. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that I also heard there's a growing concern for suicide. I can't believe how many people jump off the bridges here onto the I-5 and it happens so often that like I have to check ways to make sure that, God, like, unfortunately I have to check to see if like, is there a giant backup, because it's so common that someone's jumping off a bridge to kill themselves. And I have a friend who their child killed themselves, and I've been hearing more and more that suicide is on the rise. And I just had a wonderful guest who tried to kill himself, and he, right as he was passing out, realized he didn't want that, and he prayed, please give me another chance. And he woke up in his own vomit and he said, enough is enough. I thank God gave me another chance. And most people who do survive suicide, they say like at the last minute, I changed my mind. And if we just had that tool, like the meditation tool, to know that you're suffering, and it is so painful, you want to end your life. It is so painful, but I promise you tomorrow it's going to be better. I promise you, no matter how hard it hurts and how much you cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel right now, I promise you that you will find the light again, your life is worth living, and there's people that love you. And I believe that teaching this yoga, the teaching the breath work, the teaching the meditation, gives people the tools so that they don't do something like end their life when the suffering is so hard. Right? So that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that these tools are essential for children, that they're essential for all of us.
Yes. And it's, one of the beauties of the practice is that you are doing there's a great quote from one of the classical texts of yoga called the Bhagavad Gita. And it says, yoga is the journey of the self through the self to the self. And it's like you are doing the practice. You are the map that you're exploring, and your expansive self, your consciousness, is the end destination. And I think there's also something really empowering about that, where it's like nobody else can do it for you. You have to be the one that's going to choose to come onto the proverbial mat and do the practice. But at the end of the day, you are the one that's going to have that transformative experience, as you said, to get out of that cage. And I thought of this, you inspired me about this analogy that we use a lot about a drop, that each individual kind of spirit or soul or essence or, person is like a drop from the ocean. We each have our own each drop seems separate, right? It has its own distinct location and shape and form. And, but when you look at a drop, you see that it has all of the qualities of the ocean within it. And when a drop goes back into the ocean, it becomes the ocean, right? It's no longer a drop. And that is the true experience of yoga. It's us as our own unique individual drops merging with this ocean of intelligence, which is actually the intelligence that we really are. Right? So to be able to immerse ourselves into this ocean of intelligence on a daily basis, to have that direct experience of it, and then take it with us as we go throughout our day. But we have to go back every day and experience it, or on a regular basis, right? To really know the true nature of our being.
I love it. And I can see that whatever religion we practice, that we can incorporate that. Like for me, I see it even in church when we get into this rhythm. Well, so my church is one of the kind of churches where everyone like stands and dances and puts their hands up, and it's I was raised Anglican, and you don't do that in Catholic church, Anglican church, like you're just Protestant, like we're just kind of stiff and sitting there. But the church I go to now it's alive, and the Holy Spirit is there, and we get into this rhythmic like singing where we are in this meditation where we're singing Amen over and over again, where we're singing Jesus over and over again. And together there's this union where it is 100% meditation. My consciousness of what my grocery list, what I'm doing later that day, like just everything goes away and you're just in the moment. Prayer is meditation, right? It doesn't have to look like someone with crossed legs, right? Like sitting there with their fingers together. Like it doesn't have to look like that. Like your meditation can fit your life. And I love that you said that like knitting can be meditation. Like there's activities that you do that you love. And walking, we can do walking meditations where we're focusing on our breathing and focusing on the rhythm of the walking, and just when everything melts away and you're just being, then you're meditating, right? So I love it. I love that we're realizing that yoga isn't this like weird foreign thing. It's actually introducing us to the skills that we haven't developed yet, but that are part of who we are. It's
of humanity. Right? It's like the technology of the human body.
Yeah.
Right? What is available to us? Like we say there's an app for this, there's an app for that. There's like the technology of our human body exists the potential to adapt, to change, to expand. And it's phenomenal what the capabilities that we have in this vessel, this technology that we have with us throughout our entire life, and that we're constantly trying to escape it and get away from it, right? But it's like, no, the miracle is here. It's this. So yeah, it's quite different.
I'm reminded of Romans 2:15. Learn to be conscious of your own consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's like, so this is where this isn't something foreign. And that's the coolest thing is that yoga is I wish it was the manual that we came with, right? When I studied neurolinguistic programming and timeline therapy, and NLP, neurolinguistic programming, is a combination of behavioral psychology and cognitive therapy. It's a collection of tools, similar to yoga. It's a collection of tools, and I was like, man, this is like the manual we should have come with. Like, it is learning how to unlock our own potential. And then I studied acupuncture and acupressure and understanding the meridians of the body. And it's like, it was this whole other layer of, wow, we have this nervous system we barely tap into in the West. We just don't even understand that we have the ability to to affect our health through acupuncture, acupressure, through understanding our nervous system more. And then yoga is this other layer. It's like you tap into your own physiologic gifts. You tap into it's like the light switches. It's like, oh, you want more mental clarity? Here, let me show you nasal breathing, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
you want more strength and balance and a better, the last 25 years of your life, the last 30 years of your life could be filled with strength and balance. Here, let me show you this switch over here, right? So let me show you you want mental health, more emotional health? Here, let me show you the switch over here in your body. So that is why I love that journey of personal growth. So anyone can take your class. To tell us a bit more about how these classes work. They're obviously online. You talked about how most of it can be done at your own pace, and there's a few live classes you got to attend, which is great. And it's actually really rewarding to do that. But when does it start? How many times a year does it happen? And then if it's starting in a few months, I always tell people, like, if you want to do it, sign up and do it, because they oftentimes will give you pre-study work to do. They'll unlock some stuff. So actually the course starts the moment you decide you want to do it.
Correct. Yeah. And our next course starts October 22nd. We have about 3 courses with 3 cohorts happening per year. And once you do sign up, you do have access to that foundations program, which is a great start. And it comes with some classes and some digital learning of some of the yoga poses, some of the breathing techniques, and additional, as I mentioned, information about the sort of classical philosophy of yoga. So all very integrative and interactive for you to get started to just like chew on some of the information. And yeah, then it starts in October. It goes over the course of 16 weeks. Although there are some additional months that you have to complete it if, you needed that extra time because life happens. And we know that a lot of people doing our course, they're parents, they have full-time jobs, they might have multiple responsibilities, and sometimes things happen where they need to take a pause. And all of that is really, we try to accommodate for all of that, because really, at the end of the day, this course is about learning how to live this practice. We're not interested in necessarily creating yoga teachers that are not kind in the world or don't have a level of awareness in their everyday life. It's so much more important that you understand the gifts of the practice and live them. That's one way that you teach it, right? It's just like you embody it and you bring it into the strangers you meet on the street or who you buy your coffee from, etc. So yeah, it's a very integrated practice. Was there another question to that?
No, so it happens several times a year. And if this sounds good to you, sign up and do it.
Yeah.
Even so that you can get all the pre-study work and it unlocks the stuff so you can start learning. There's a discount. I love that IIN gives my listeners a discount. I asked all the way back when I took my training 7 or 8 years ago. I think it was actually 7 years ago is when I graduated from IIN. I asked if I could get a discount code because I knew I would be telling everyone about it. And so you guys are graciously giving a 25% off, and that's with coupon code LTH. So people can actually sign up online. And of course, the links to all of that will be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. And then also they can call the Institute for Integrative Nutrition if they'd like, and they can ask questions and they can sign up there. And I know that IIN does offer payment plans, so anyone can do it. Don't let limiting decisions stop you. If this sounds interesting to you and you want those mental, emotional, and physical benefits and even spiritual benefits of for me, it's personal growth. Personal growth,
Yeah.
checks off all those boxes. It's like, for me, this is like, oh, personal growth gives me physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, energetic health. And just knowing I can breathe through my nose and get more mental clarity. I quit coffee again, so I'm like, oh man, am I ever breathing through my nose right now?
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. So listeners know that no matter what, they can do it. Busy people can do it. If you're on a budget, you can do it. You can do it, and you make it accessible to everyone, which is wonderful. I definitely want to make sure that we give us enough time for you to teach us the pranayama, the breathing techniques. I want everyone to experience. But before we get into that, was there anything else, any other studies or science or anything else that you wanted to make sure that we touched on?
Yeah, I think I just want to also say that, there's a lot of this. We went into a lot of the depths of the practice. But the two things that are so important that we have throughout our experience is how to stand and how to breathe. And these are the two things that we do every day in our life that we don't always know or learn how to do. And one of the things that is a big part of this program is understanding what's called Tadasana, mountain pose. And that's the template of every other pose. And it's essentially standing anatomically correct, balanced in your feet, aligned in your spine, tall through your torso, spacious in your chest, and with your head and neck just floating easily on the tip of your spine. And if we can all learn how to stand in our own body and hold everything that arises in that experience, it's like we come back to our truth. We stand in our truth, we rest in our truth, and then we can communicate from that place and build relationships based on that. And so just the importance, of and that's a very simple yoga pose, but I think it's one of the most powerful ones, standing and then breathing. There's lots of studies around how we stand affects the way that we interact with other people and the different hormones that are released when we stand and when we take on a more sort of empowered stance, that it actually creates these feedback loops for us in our brain that enables us to hold experience differently and that other people respond to us differently. So I just wanted to share that just as a closure around something so simple in the way that we hold ourselves up. And it's also, just to add to it, it's a choice. We can choose how we organize our bodies in space, how we choose to stand right in the world, and it makes a difference in how we move throughout the world. And I think there's a real poetry in that.
Wow, that's so true. Our confidence can be shifted by how we hold ourselves. There was a TED talk on that about the superhero pose where like surgeons would put their fists on their hips and pull their shoulders back and chin up and just like smile or breathe, and that it would build their confidence. And what's interesting when you study NLP, the first thing you learn is that your state, so your state is the physiology you have, your emotional state in the moment, and your mental state. Like what are you thinking to yourself? Are you thinking like I suck? Or are you thinking like what, like I love myself? Like what are you thinking? Your mindset, but your state directly impacts your behavior and your choices, and that directly impacts your results in life. And if you're walking around with your shoulders hunched, breathing shallow, just that physiology it calls forth negative thoughts about yourself, negative thoughts about your life.
That's right.
And when you pull your shoulders back and your chin up, you've changed almost nothing about your circumstances other than you now could open up your breathing. Because you changed your physiology, you now shift your mindset and your confidence, which will change your behaviors, and that changes your results in life. So something as simple as like doing that mountain pose and being aware, conscious of your body and space. Like, I am standing here and, oh, wow, okay, I can pull my shoulders back a bit. I can bring my chin up a bit. Like, oh, I can breathe a bit more. And being aware, is your neck, way shot out in front of your shoulders, or are your ears in alignment with your shoulders? Like, would your chiropractor be proud of you the way you're standing? and just be coming back into that consciously, that shifts your emotional state, that shifts your mental state by shifting your physiology. So I love that you brought that up, because that's such a powerful, simple tool to unlock, to understand that where we are in space, our physiology directly impacts our state.
You nailed it.
Right?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, I want to make sure you do some pranayama with us, some breathing techniques, which will lower, what it does is it makes your heart rate variability healthy. And it turns on that healing mode. So if everyone wants that supercharged healing mode and also gives you mental clarity and gives you creative thinking, then you want to do this. So I'm so excited. Let's do this.
Great.
Take it away.
Okay, so perfect. Yeah, and I think since we talked a lot about nasal breathing, I think I'll share with you alternate nostril breathing, which is a really powerful breath technique that balances the flow of air through the right and left nostril. And as I mentioned, it corresponds to the right and left brain hemispheres, which also energetically, the right and left nostrils relate to our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system responses. So it's really creating this balancing effect of these activating, energizing, solar-based energies with these pacifying, quieting, lunar-based energies that we have in us. And the effects are, in addition to all the great benefits of nasal breathing, it calms anxiety, it quiets down nervousness and restless chatter of the mind. It helps us to be more clear in our minds and to pull our sensory stimulus inward. So we're no longer, 80% of our energy goes through the sense of sight. And so when we close our eyes and then we practice this technique, it actually allows us, all of the sensory stimulus that's moving outward can be inward and can move inward, which is called the prana, which is the name for the life force energy. The healing energy can go into our brain and our heart and help us to fortify all of the systems of our nervous system activity, but also that healing response. So what we'll do is we'll sit comfortably on our chair. If your feet are on the floor, just make sure that they're evenly rooting onto the floor. Or if you're sitting on a cushion, you can just place, a cushion or a blanket underneath your seat if you're on the floor. And sit up nice and tall with your spine so that we have this balance and ease in the lungs and the diaphragm as we move through this breath technique. And we're going to begin, before we take the hand gesture, I'll just invite you to take a slow breath in through both nostrils and breathe out through both nostrils. And just do that one more time. Breathe in through both nostrils. And exhale through both nostrils. Just taking a couple of reset breaths. And now take your right hand and place your thumb over your right nostril and your ring finger over your left nostril. we're using our thumb and ring finger to sort of manipulate the nostrils. And then you can either keep your pointer and middle fingers folded down in towards your right palm, or if it feels okay, your pointer and middle finger press up into the space between your eyebrows and a little bit above. So again, thumb is over the right nostril, ring finger over the left nostril, pointer and middle finger either folded in towards your palm or pressing up to the midbrain region. Once you have that hand gesture, breathe in through both nostrils and breathe out through both nostrils. And then blocking your left nostril with the ring finger, inhale through the right nostril, and then hold and block both nostrils for a moment, and then release your left nostril and exhale. Breathe in through the left nostril, so keep the right nostril blocked. Hold and block both nostrils gently, no force. And then release the right nostril with your thumb and exhale through the right nostril. Breathe in through the right nostril. Hold and retain the breath, block both nostrils. Release your left nostril and exhale. Inhale through the left. Hold and block both. And exhale through the right. And you can take one more round on your own, breathing in. Hold and retain. Out the opposite. In through the same side you just breathed out of. Hold and retain. And out the opposite side. Now keep your eyes closed if that's comfortable for you. And rest your hand down. So rest both hands down to the tops of the thighs. And just notice the air passing freely through both nostrils. Notice any shifts you feel in your mind, your heart rate, your nervous system. And gently drop your chin towards your chest and blink your eyes open to a point a little bit in front of you, somewhere in your space. Take in that point with your eyes, with your gaze, and then slowly float your eyes back up, taking in the rest of the room. You might notice shifts in how you perceive the world around you. That's alternate nostril breathing.
That's wonderful. And there's so many more techniques that are available and that they will learn from your 200-hour yoga teacher training through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And like I said, all the links to that will be in the show notes of today's podcast, learntohealth.com, along with the wonderful discount that they're offering my listeners. So if that intrigued you, you're going to love the training. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us today. I would love to have you back anytime you want to go deep into any of these topics. You talked about that there's 8 legs of yoga.
Mm,
We didn't even get to we didn't get to go down the rabbit hole
yeah.
of all these other, aspects, but I feel like we really touched on why someone would want to would want to try this and practice it, because it offers them access to control their body, control their
Mm,
state, increase their immune system, increase their heart health, increase their longevity. Like, there's just so many reasons why you'd want to have these tools in your tool belt. And you are the master that teaches these tools, and they'd be learning from you, right? And they'd learn from many wonderful lessons and teachers. And your teaching is so kind and gentle and thoughtful, and I really enjoyed this. So thank you so much for coming on the
thank
show.
you. Thank you, Ashley. It was truly a real pleasure of mine. I'm really honored to be on your show, and thank you for the wonderful conversation. I look forward to being with you again.
That would be great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And listeners, make sure that you check out the links that are going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, learntohealth.com. And we will see Sarah Platt Finger again on the show soon. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Wasn't Sarah wonderful? I can't wait to have her back on the show. After we finished the interview, she started telling me more about the different areas of yoga that we didn't even go into and cover, and how deep we can really go with this conversation. I felt today was a great foundational, just laying it all out, especially for those who didn't really know a lot about yoga, or maybe just had heard about it really through media but hadn't experienced it, or maybe took a few classes but there wasn't any real depth to the knowledge. So I wanted to lay the foundation, and then when she comes on again, we can go deeper with this discussion and learn more about the science behind it, the philosophy, the history, and the different legs or the different aspects of yoga, and how we can utilize that to strengthen our life and strengthen our healing, strengthen our emotional health, our mental health, our physical health, our energetic health, and even our spiritual health. Thank you so much for being a listener. Please share this episode with those you care about. And if you're interested in taking the course, go to learntruehealth.com/coach. That's learntruehealth.com/coach. You can use coupon code LTH. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me in our Facebook group, the Learn True Health Facebook group, or you can email me, ashley@learntruehealth.com.